I think if you look back on season one, you'd say, well, we told a story about what happened to the character of Reese in the past, and how did he get where he is. And we learned a lot about Jessica and his backstory, and what happened with him in the military, and how he fell off the grid. And I think we've kind of told the story between what happened with Reese and Jessica, and we know a lot more about him than we did before, and we understand him in that aspect. But Harold Finch is a very interesting character who was also falling off the grid for his own reasons. And towards the end of the season, obviously, we found out about a fiancée that he had named Grace, who he chose to leave behind. And I think the story we haven't heard is what happened to Harold Finch, and at what point did he have to make that decision, and how did he do it, and also what happened with his partner Nathan Ingram, and how did Finch get his limb. So, all things that we want to explore this year, but first we have the issue of the fact that he's been abducted. Oh, I think it's constantly evolving, and I think even if you go back and look at the first couple episodes of season one and how much we've sort of gone along in terms of the machine POV that you see on the show, and the amount of GAC, or what we call it, and the squares, the amount of information that's being translated to the audience. I mean, that's almost like another part of the show that, like, some people are following, some people aren't, and beginning to understand that this is a machine that can learn. And we think that we're in some really interesting times here. And the idea that, have they tried to build a machine? Yes, they have. The question you should ask yourself is, have they? And if so, how is it constantly evolving? I mean, it's kind of amazing, even when the smartphone came along, what it did initially, and then even what it does to every generation after, and then how immediately we adopt that technology and it becomes a given. And I think that's the same thing that's going to happen with our show, is whether it's social networking or whether it's smartphones or surveillance, and how it's all integrated. You have to imagine that the machine that Harold Finch has created is taking all of this in, and it's very interesting times. Yeah, I wonder. London had the Ring of Steel before New York, Bloomberg's New York, brought out as many cameras as it did, and I think the British were immediately much more comfortable with it, and I think have been very successful in using that level of surveillance to avert another terrorist attack. So I think that becomes the question for people: is how comfortable are you with trading your privacy for security, and is it a bad thing? And I think that most people would answer, say, if I'm not doing something wrong, then what do I care? But it's not just surveillance; it's cameras. It's what's being transmitted from the phone, and who's using that information. And it's an interesting question, and we don't want to be didactic about it and say, oh, moralize this Orwellian nightmare that we've entered into. No, I think it's a much more complex question, and we're in a very interesting area in terms of processing power of machines and how they can take that information and use it. So, fun question.
Thank you.
Thank you.